Welcome to DIY 360. I'm Kevin Bowe. This is Alison Scott, my good
Hello.
buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, you guys. So, we have so much to talk about.
So much.
And we can talk about you, too.
Oh, good.
Actually.
I'm glad.
No, I'm excited about this episode of IPR's DIY 360 because Allison and I have been business partners for many years. So if I ask her a question and she's lying, I'll know. So our story couldn't be more different musically. I mean, I grew up in the garage playing classic rock and then punk rock. Now, you grew up, your first experience with music, besides the fact that your mom was a singer in a band, your first experience with music was music lessons, right?
Yeah, piano when I was 5.
And you loved it or hated it?
I think I loved it when I was 5. By the time I was 10, I was all done with that. I hated it. But I was taking classical piano lessons, and I just don't think I was interested. I didn't want to practice. They had to hound me every day. I had to get up early before school to practice.
What?
Yeah, it was just not worth it at the time, so I quit. I only made it 5 years. And then I kind of started, by the time I was maybe 12, I was in voice lessons.
At school or private?
No, I was taking lessons from one of the people at Chanhassen Dinner Theater.
Oh, really? No, I didn't
A
know
music
that.
theater person, yes. So, and then by the time I was in high school, it was all singing, all choir, all music theater all the time.
And you were thinking that's what you were going to go into, is musical theater and work on Broadway and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff, right?
I was a music theater major my freshman year of college, and then I wasn't happy at that school, so I came home and took a semester off, and then my mom actually went to some college fair with my sister who was trying to look at schools, and she saw some little punk kid with green hair at one of the booths and thought, Allie would like to go there. So it was a McNally Smith booth, and so that's where I ended up.
And you did the 2-year program there,
I did.
Majoring in vocal performance?
Correct. And then right as I was coming out of that program is when when we met.
Right. And what were your feelings about, what do you think you got out of that 2-year degree at that place, and what do you think was missing?
If I'm being brutally honest, I think I wouldn't be in the music business had I not gone there. I started writing while I was there. I retaught myself how to play the piano while I was there. And there were a couple key people that were hugely instrumental in kind of encouraging my growth and my path and my switch to contemporary music. But there was a lack of organization at that school. And so I think it's one of those things where I could have gone and just taken the classes that I wanted to take and gotten what I wanted to out of it. I don't think I'm any better off for
The degree.
for having a piece of paper that says no band is going to let me sing with them because I have a piece of paper. But
Well, a lot of stuff happened in between. We met, like you said, there was a songwriting contest that someone asked me to be a judge on that was held at McNally, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. And you won the contest, and that's when we met, although we'd met before since back when I worked at a restaurant with my wife. I bust your dirty dishes.
and I went to preschool with Laura.
Yeah, with my daughter. So, but when you came to collect your prize, we figured out then that that I knew your parents a little bit and that they were really good friends of my wife. So it was interesting levels of coincidence going on there. And then the first thing we did together musically was you just hired me to produce an album on you, your first
Right.
album.
And the plan was that was it. Then we would
Yeah.
go our separate ways, and I would try to do something with it.
Right. And so that was the Wish on the Moon album. It's funny to think back on this now because how long was that, like 8 years ago or something like that? 9 years ago? Honestly, don't lie to me.
I think it was 7 or 8.
7 or 8? Okay.
We
Usually
put
when
out
she says 7 or 8 years, I'm like, no, it's only been 3 or 4. Quit lying. 'Cause it took us a little longer to get where we are. But I should probably throw this in here. Where we are right now is you haven't had a day job in years. You make your complete living by performing and teaching piano and voice. And what do you teach? Only 3 days a week?
2 right now.
2 days a
2
week.
half days, really.
2 half days.
Yeah.
So, and you've sold like going on 15,000 albums. We've sold out the Dakota 15 times in a row. We've played as far west as L.A. and as far east as what? What's the eastest we've played?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, right? I forgot about Pittsburgh. So, and playing big clubs and theater shows all over the Midwest, and you've really turned this into a ongoing business that we've both done really well with. But so the interesting question probably for the students is, how the hell did you get to hiring dude to produce your first album to making a living at this and having a baby?
Yes, there was that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because the food your baby eats is paid for with music.
That is pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome. Yeah, that's a rare thing.
Yeah. Well, God, a lot happened. There's a whole bunch of steps in there. But I think the first thing was through the making of Wish on the Moon, Kevin and I kind of realized we had the same vision for the project. And so somehow I convinced him to come on as kind of a business partner, manager.
You know how you did it? Your dad paid me, remember?
Yes.
For the first
Money
year.
helps. Money helps.
Her dad paid me a nominal sum to manage Allie and be her musical director, put a band together,
Play
be the
guitar
booking
for me,
agent,
yeah.
play guitar, promote the album, do all that stuff. And then it didn't take him that long to get tired of paying me to do that. Probably wasn't it a year,
I think
year and
it
a half
was a year,
tops?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And
they considered, so I did my freshman year of college as a music theater major, and then I did 2 years at McNally. And my deal with my parents was always they'll pay for me to go to college. So Wish on the Moon and that year of they considered my 4th year of college. And then I was cut off. I was all done. So
they have been, and to their credit though, once you were cut off, have they even been on the guest list once? They've always paid.
They always pay.
Yeah.
They're very supportive still. And they're both musicians, which I think I'm really lucky that they're supportive, because a lot of my friends when I was in school, their parents were like, when are you going to grow up and get a real job? And my parents were at every show and, paid for my 4th year of college.
Which is fun going to every show now, but back.
Then we
Yeah.
just needed them to be in the seats so it didn't look pathetic.
Yeah. And
And bring all
the
their
only
friends.
people the only people in the audience are my parents. That doesn't look pathetic at all. You were in a weird position though, because you didn't grow up like playing in bands as a teenager and stuff. We finished this first record and you'd never done your first real public gig with your own band and everything was the CD release show at the Varsity Theater with like 400 people
Oh,
there.
it was terrifying. I think we had done some open mics at 318 in Excelsior, and that was about it. So that whole night is a complete blur to me. I don't remember anything. I was totally on autopilot.
You seem to remember Tommy Barbarella kissing you. You've described that
Yes,
in detail many times.
that
So that's
happened.
like a clear.
Well, Tommy played on my first record. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but you should. He was playing keys for me that night, and I was literally standing by the stage ready to pee myself before we walked on. And I think he could just see the terror in my face, and so he came up and kissed me on the forehead and said something like,
It's
gonna be okay. And then we went on stage.
Which is cool because he toured with Prince for 12 years
Yeah.
and he's like the best looking
helped.
man in the history of men.
Yeah. So, and that's all I remember.
Well,
after
I notice.
After that, there's nothing.
Doesn't have to be weird.
Yeah. So then
So that show was a success.
That show was a success, but we didn't really have a band because
They were hired guns.
Yeah, they were my session players for the record, and so after that, I think we went through at least 2 other rhythm sections before
Yeah.
we landed on.
Not good.
No, not.
And then somehow landed Steve Price and Peter Anderson, and that's when we got to be a band.
Right. I think our approach at first was just like, well, find people who are willing to play with us, because I was a nobody. Nobody knew my name, and so you kind of just assumed that your, bigger name friends wouldn't be interested in a startup project because they had so much else going on, and then somehow they were interested in.
They liked the record.
Yeah. So
They liked the record.
Peter,
That record did a lot for us. It's funny because now we think of it as like, oh, it's not nearly
That
as
was
good as
so
the
long
second
ago.
record.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. But it really did a lot. And we've sold what, 3,000-4,000 of them,
Yeah, and we still sell them at every show.
and we keep
100%
every
of the
dollar.
money.
Yeah,
We
because
say that. However, I shouldn't say we keep the money. We keep our gig money. Whatever we get paid for our shows, that money pays our bills and we get to take it home. But most of the CD money has just been funneled back into the business because there's always something you need to pay for, whether it's pressing new records or doing promotion or business cards or whatever.
we've gotten some money from CD sales though too.
We have, but that's
Yeah.
more recent. I mean, for the
Yeah.
first
Yeah,
5
back
years.
then, no. Yeah,
No, we
back
didn't
then.
see any of it.
And so, but we had to then. The other thing is that after we did that big CD release party at the Varsity with 400 people, that was mostly the F&F quotient in the crowd there, friends and family. We really papered the house, and then after that, we had to start doing gigs.
Get real people to come see us.
Yeah, and they didn't.
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
It took a while.
Only imaginary people, invisible people. We had a huge following of invisible people, and it was really hard to get gigs. And so, what did we do that kind of started to get you a following? The lunch.
There's a few things. Yeah, so
Well, first we took any gig.
anything. There was one summer, and it wasn't way at the beginning. This was like 4 years ago, where I played 90 shows in 120 days. And half of them I don't think I got paid for. But it was like any gig where I could be outside in public, amplified, and just try to get the attention of people who are walking by. That was the goal. And I think that helped a lot. Also, we contacted the Dakota and pitched to them that I play lunch for them once a week, and they don't have lunch music. So it was kind of
We just thought of that because that piano is sitting there on the stage.
Yeah.
And there's
they have a
of people
decent
need
lunch
lunch.
crowd, and that's our fan base. So it was kind of the perfect opportunity. So I told them I'd do it for free, and I think I did it for almost 6 months before they started paying me $100 a gig, and then I did it for a few months after that, and then we stopped. But
we've
we
had to
did
do that the whole way along though, because there's no Minneapolis. If you're a hip hop act in Minneapolis or an indie rock act, then there's a roadmap for you. The hip hop people do this and play here, and they're on this label, and there's these people will write about you, and blah 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 blah. And the indie rock thing is the same. But for someone doing soul music like you do, the thing that I found challenging, I think we both did, is that we had to invent our own way of doing it because nobody would write about you, and people. The thing, it was a balancing act because the media, the Minneapolis music scene media and business people didn't want to know about it, but people loved it.
Yeah.
So we had consumers. It's like you were the best kept secret in town.
Yep. We
regarding
got
the
no
media.
press, but I sold a crap ton of CDs at every show. And we slowly really started to make some money because
With a dedicated large following.
they came back a lot. And
But
they still
radio,
come back. Nothing.
The current Cities 97, none of them, even Fresh Air, just none of them were interested at all. None of the media was interested. So it was a weird paradox. Over time, I think we realized that it's better to be popular with people and customers and not with media than the other way around, because there are a lot of artists that get written about constantly. You'd think that they were the Rolling Stones, and then you go to their show.
Yeah, or
and
you even talk.
there's
I mean,
nobody
some
there.
of them are friends of ours, and I just assume they're doing so
Yeah.
well. And then you talk to them, and they're having the same troubles of anybody else. So I don't know how much being a press darling really helps you. I don't know. I'm not one, so I couldn't tell you.
I think it helps you maybe within Minneapolis. Some of those bands can get a First Avenue main room gig and put enough people to not be humiliated.
Right.
Which is like, you put less than 500 people in the main room, you're lonely.
It seems pretty empty.
Yeah, but they can only do that once or twice a year. And then the other thing is that cachet you might get from being a darling in city pages and stuff like that. Drive to Duluth.
Yeah,
Everyone's
nobody's
like,
gonna
who
know
are
who you
you?
are. Yeah.
I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And when you get to other towns, you kind of just have to be good. And that's one thing I noticed with this thing is that we'd go to these small towns and play theaters and stuff like that, and they don't care about any of the stuff that the Minneapolis
hipster
music
stuff.
scene, the
No,
hipster stuff. They just
not
want,
interested.
can you do something that I haven't seen before? Are you good? That's all they can. They don't
Yeah.
care if you're playing spoons or doing taxidermy.
Right.
As long as you're really, really good at what you do.
They don't get that much entertainment in some of these small towns.
Yeah,
So as long
but
as it's quality, they're really excited to be
it's
there.
It's more of a pure way of looking at it. Whereas in Minneapolis, you can read about some band, and like the critic says, all these guys are the second coming of Christ, and you go see them, and it's like, well, you can't write, and you can't sing, and you can't play. You can't dance, you can't tune.
But you have good hair.
Yeah, or lots of tats or some kind of attitude thing. So it can be like an emperor's new clothes thing. But you get out in the outer state areas, and I think that there's a certain, it's more honest.
Yeah, and I think that's the
Simpler.
other part of it is being an indie rock artist is really great if you're in Minneapolis because it's such an indie rock town. But the thing that it's not super great for is doing like corporate gigs or a lot of the private parties that we play. I think this band is really versatile because we play a lot of different genres, and we can play mostly dance stuff, or we can play quiet stuff, or I can play by myself.
Still mostly originals.
But we can chop this band up any which way and still have a product.
That's been
to sell.
one of the saving graces, I think, because even though despite the challenges we ran into, one thing that was awesome from the beginning, we could throw you out there solo piano, or we could do duo gigs with me on guitar and you on piano, and we did tons of those, still do.
Yep.
And that literally quadrupled the number of venues we could play.
Yep.
So we could just play all the time, or we could play full band but with Peter on brushes on drums and play chill, or we can be as
really
loud as
rockin'.
anyone in town.
Yeah. And it's nice because people approach you about a gig, and we can really cater what we do to fit the venue and the client. And, those corporate gigs or private parties, they pay a lot of money. So it's...
And they're people who love music. It's like, I think you kind of appeal to the silent majority, the 99% of people in the state that don't listen to indie rock. And I don't mean to bash indie rock. I just finished producing the new Communist Daughter record, and I love good indie rock.
Right.
But I also love Carole King and Carly Simon and the Isley Brothers and other things like that. So most people, though, if they went and saw a lot of the bands that are featured on The Current or whatever, they would go, I hate this, I don't get this, because they want to listen to, this is not their thing.
Right.
But those people, if you were a Martian and you just learned about the Earth from reading City Pages or whatever, you'd think that everyone on Earth is 26 years old, has multiple tats and piercings, does graphics at an up-and-coming branding agency, and is a vegetarian, and it's like, that's fine, those people are fine, but they're this much the minority. And it almost surprised me when we started playing out that like there's this other 99% that completely loves what you do, and they're really loyal.
They're really loyal. They have more money than the hipsters, which is nice. I mean, they buy CDs. They don't steal them. They come to shows all the time. They'll pay.
I don't think hipsters actually steal physical CDs.
No.
I think they steal the money, the music off the internet,
Yes,
as I understand it. Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Like, dude, what's that?
No, but it's they're happy to support the arts and come pay $20 to see a show or whatever. So
we've had nights at the Dakota where it wasn't even a CD release, and you sold 80 CDs in one night. And I remember I tell that to my friends in hipster bands, and they're like, I sold 80 CDs last year, because their fans don't buy hard copies. They don't want the physical. So it's weird, the forgotten majority. But okay, so if you wanted to play a song and explain to these guys what the hell it is that you do, which one would it be?
Should we do So Why, and you can tambo and sing?
Who's we, Lone Ranger?
Fine, I'll do it myself.
Oh, you have a tambo?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
I don't normally get a wheelie office chair for my gigs. I like it.
Normally I dance to this, but, well, I don't know if the camera can get this, but I'm playing hurt. So, thank you.
So this is a song I wrote for my most recent originals record. It's called So Why. Secret, but
am tempted not to keep it to myself. I swore I would never ever tell, but my heart, it ain't doing so well. Baby, believe it. And I'm all torn up inside, tortured by the wrong that seems so right. And you do all you can to try to stay away just like you should, but you can't deny you feel so good. So can we try it for tonight?
So why?
Can't you let her go?
So why?
Lord knows you've always known
So why?
that I want you for my own. So what's your reason why?
So why?
Do you come around?
So
when
why?
you know what's going down?
So why?
This love ain't burning out. I need a reason why. Oh, why? You look my way when I walk on by. Got something to say, I can see in your eyes. You know I need it. My emotions tremble to the thought of your touch, but my imagination just ain't enough. I'm barely breathing.
So why?
Can't you let her go?
So why?
Lord knows you've always known
So why?
that I want you for my own. So what's your reason why?
So why?
Do you come around?
So
when
why?
you know what's going down?
So why?
This love ain't burning out. Well, I need a reason why. Well, she doesn't love you like I would, baby. And you're not as happy as you could be, baby. She never really understood you, baby. But I do, yeah, I do. Why? Why? Oh, why?
So why?
Can't you let her go?
So why?
Lord knows you've always known
So why?
that I want you for my own. So what's your reason why?
So why?
Do you come around?
So
when
why?
you know what's going down?
So why?
This love ain't burning out. I need a reason why. Oh, why? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So why? So why?
So why?
No, 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 no,
So why?
no, no, no,
So
no,
why? So why? So why? So why?
So why? So why? So why? So why? Thank you.
It's funny how that song works in so many different ways, because this way it sounds like this soul thing, but the way we recorded it, it sounds like Donna Summer or meets the Bee
Disco,
Gees. Yeah,
yeah.
totally disco. So what else should we talk about? Let's talk about touring. We should talk about touring and what it's like to be in a band with all dudes. Because different female artists that I've had on this series have different takes on that. But so let's talk about that first. Have you ever found it to be lonely or uncomfortable, the fact that we're not like 22-year-old dudes. It's
No,
not like we're
that would be
loudly
completely
farting on the
different.
bus and, telling crude jokes and stuff like that.
I think it's really comfortable, actually. I think with boys come less drama, which I appreciate because I am not a fan of the
I know
drama.
Steve seems to be embroiled in drama a lot, though, but he's not like other boys.
That's
Steve
true.
isn't, yeah.
But it's not cat fighty.
No.
And the other thing is, not only am I, because they're not 22-year-old guys, they have a lot of experience, and so whenever we're kind of in a new situation that I haven't been in before, usually one of them has, and so they can kind of help me through it or let me know what I should expect, or I just never worry because I have 3 engineers in my band, which is always helpful in a bad sound
Always?
situation. Well, I also can just instantly tune them out when they start talking about gear because it's just all way over my head. But
It's so fascinating. 8-hour van rides where we're talking about plugins the whole way.
yes, I have headphones.
But it's funny because you were saying, well, you have us to lean on if you run into some new situation. But part of the process here of working together for all these years is I decided kind of from the beginning that I wasn't going to, that's that old expression of, give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he eats for life. Because you've learned how to fish. I used to do the booking and the management and all this kind of stuff. And I taught you, and promotion, how to promote
Right.
a gig, the whole deal. And you've learned all this stuff along the way. And every year I've turned over more of it to you.
Right.
Which is great because I still take half the money. So it's worked out great for me. But in the beginning, I did have to do everything because you'd never done a gig, had never done a session. But now,
Yes.
I mean, when's the last time you ran across some situation that completely shocked and surprised you and you weren't equipped to handle?
None. I mean, it
Do you
doesn't
even
happen
remember?
anymore. No,
Yeah.
but it happened a lot, the first few years. And it went from kind of being intimidated to be working with these guys because they all have such impressive resumes to me just being able to appreciate it because of these situations that would arise and they'd be able to help me. And now I've just been doing it so long that I guess
Now we're at the taking us for granted phase, I think,
yeah,
mostly.
Yeah. I'm just like, meh.
Next comes deep burning resentment. What the hell do I keep these guys around for? And then solo. So what do you think is the one weirdest thing that is road stories? What's the weirdest thing you've ever encountered when we've been touring? Because we must have played like 75 cities that aren't Minneapolis. I mean, we've played all over the Midwest.
Well, I think our road stories are different than your average band's road stories because we are really weird in that
We're sober.
I mean, Peter and Steve will have a couple of beers, but basically we don't drink. Nobody in the band smokes. We're all married. Half the band members have kids. There's none of that nonsense
It's the Mormon
going
Tabernacle
on.
Choir. It's like touring with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
So I appreciate that, I think.
Still, weirdest
But craziest, oh God. Well, recently, I don't even know if I shared this with you the next morning, but
Good.
one of the grant gigs. So we received a grant last year for the fiscal year 2012. That was $27,000 from the state of Minnesota to play 7 shows in some big cities like Winona, and then some cities that most people have never heard of, like Staples, Motley. And I can't even remember which city we were in, but I was 6 months pregnant, probably. This was last fall. And we were up north, and someone donated the hotel room. So normally maybe the venue will give us money towards hotel rooms, but I usually get to pick them or book the hotel. This one, like a friend of the venue, gave us rooms at their motel. And we were on the ground floor, and the first rule of when you're on the road, you never want to stay at a hotel where your door goes directly outside. Just for safety, it's not ideal. And we were...
oh, you mean for the whole rape and murder thing?
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was on the ground floor, 6 months pregnant, and neither of the locks on my door worked. And by the time I figured this out, the front desk had kind of shut down, so I was just kind of stuck in this room overnight.
What city is this? Was I?
I don't remember.
Were we all there?
Yes.
Was that when it was really like 20 below, that place?
I don't remember. See, it's all just a blur. That they all blur together, but it was not 20 below. So anyway, I slept with. I don't know if I actually slept the whole night because I definitely had one eye open and I had a door wedged under my door handle to make sure nobody would come in, and it was the most terrifying night of my life. We were not in a good part of town, but so that's like the fun part of being on the road. Then also Steve, is he in the room? Good. Let's keep it that way. Okay, so no, just because while I tell the story about him. So we played in, where was that, St. Cloud a month ago or so, St. Ben's. We played at St. Ben's, and there's when you go to certain cities over and over, you kind of like develop spots that you stop at to eat.
Oh my God.
And
I know where this is going.
So there's a particular truck stop that has really good, like as big as your head, baked goods. So we stopped at 5 o'clock. We were 10 minutes away from the venue, maybe 15. We stopped at 5 o'clock to get a sandwich at Subway because that's what you eat when you're on the road. And we had to be at the venue at 5:30. Steve decided, you all know Steve Price, yes?
Enough of them do. They'll get it.
So he was going to walk across the highway from Subway to get donuts for his family for the next morning. And
Because
somewhere
when Stevie decides he's going to get donuts,
he's going to get donuts.
nothing is going to stop him from inconveniencing everyone and going to get the damn donuts.
Even if it makes us late. So we are going to be a little late anyway, just waiting for him to get his butt back. But somewhere on the median of the highway, he lost the car keys. And you can't just wander around a highway looking for your car keys. And it was just starting to rain when this happened. So I think it took us an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. Kevin and Peter were trying to get the auto shop, which was right next door, to break into my car for me. And once they did, the alarm automatically went off and we couldn't really get it turned off. And
So many levels of us looking stupid here. Car alarm, lost keys, wandering around the highway, going like this, poking at dog poop and all the kind of crap you find by the
sticking
highway.
our hands in any little rabbit hole they could have. I mean, I'm surprised one of us wasn't bit by a snake or something, but
I'm
thank
surprised
God.
one of us didn't kill Steve.
Well, he was the one who found them, and if he hadn't been the one to find them,
Yeah.
I think he might be dead now. But thank God we made it to the venue like 45 minutes before the show started, and
I'll
somehow
meet your bet on the Steve thing and raise you.
Uh-oh.
Because remember when we played your friend's wedding up in northern Wisconsin?
Yeah?
Remember?
What happened? I didn't ride
and
with
we
you
stayed
guys.
at an equally creepy motel.
Okay.
And Steve lied to me about which room. He somehow traded the room keys. And he gave me a key and said, "That's your room, number 3." And so I opened the door, and there's this dude, and he's huge, like literally $2.50 of dude sitting there on the bed. And he gets up, and it's dark, and he goes, What? And Steve's outside laughing so hard because he got me to go in some other random dude's room.
But why did your key work to someone else's
He
room?
traded them at the front desk that was late, and they didn't have someone up, and so it's
Oh
one of those
my
places where they just
God.
hang the keys up. There's no security, you know what I mean? But he laughed for weeks. He thought that
I'm
was
sure
every time
he
he
did.
saw me, he laughed. He thought that was his idea of the best time ever.
Yeah, but if we did that to Steve, can you imagine?
If we did it to Steve, I'd feel
He'd
sorry
quit
for
the
the
band.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he'd probably go steal his
Pretty much all the
donuts.
stories are Steve related.
So what else? So we talked about the road. We talked about hanging out with dudes. Let's talk about playing another song.
Okay. Should we do something completely different? Should
Wow.
I? I guess there's no we today. Honeybees?
Sure.
A duet?
With oh, you want to do? Okay, come on. No, I didn't bring a guitar. It's too hard for me to carry gear with my foot. Sorry. She doesn't need me. Plus, this song is hard. It has like 49 chords in it.
Yeah. I did regret it a little bit after I wrote it, but it was too late.
If love came from honeybees and jam from the sea, we'd buy a house upon the shore where flowers wait for me. The breeze would blow in happiness, the waters dance till dawn, the trees would sing a lullaby, and we'd softly hum along. Then he'd kiss on me sweetly and watch the whole world fall away. He'd hold me closely, and maybe we'd get lost beneath the waves. We'd find our own secret place. If love came from honeybees, if gold came from dragonflies just beyond my reach, I'd build a ladder to the sky and catch them for my sweet. I'd make a tiny ring of gold and give myself to you, and we'd spend our days upon that shore and watch the tulips bloom. Then he'd kiss me sweetly and watch the whole world fall away. He'd hold me closely, and maybe we'd get lost beneath the waves. We'd find our own secret place. If gold came from dragonflies, just take my hand and we're off to someplace no one else could find. I've never danced, but I would learn to. If you'd hold me underneath this sky all night, all night, all night, then you'd kiss me sweetly and watch the world fall away. You'd hold me closely, and maybe we'd get lost beneath the waves. We'd find our own secret place. If love came from honeybees,
Thank you.
And that one's about as jazzy as your writing gets, right?
Oh,
Isn't that
yes,
the jazziest
for sure.
song?
Yes.
Because you've written some stuff that would fall right into that early to mid 70s funk soul kind of deal.
And some's a little poppier, and some's there. I have a lot of blues influence, I think, in my stuff too. But
So the writing thing for you, how has that changed since the songs you wrote for your first album, as opposed to the kind of stuff you're writing now? The songwriting process.
the thing that's so awesome about having a band is when I wrote for Wish on the Moon, I hadn't met any of you guys yet. I wrote almost all of those songs before I even met Kevin. And so I had to write them in a way that I could do by myself everything that was in my head. So there was a lot more ballads going on, and I could never write something that was based on the background vocals because I couldn't cover all the parts by myself. And then when we started writing for Chinese Whispers, I started writing songs like the first song we played today, which the whole hook of the song I have nothing to do with because Kevin and Steve cover that part. So it's really opened my, it's taken me out of my box in a way that I can write a lot more up tempo and arrange a little bit in my head. You still do most of that stuff, but I can hear more of it now.
So when you're writing now, you can hear the band up in your head as opposed to just playing yourself. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's the same with me. I'll make a choice sometimes, but when I'm writing a song, if I'm going to write and I don't want anyone else up in my head, I'll write on an acoustic guitar.
Right.
And then if I want to write a band song, then I'll maybe get a beat going on in my studio and play electric guitar with an amp, so it feels more like that. So what's next? Tell them about what we're working on for this holiday deal.
Well, so I had a baby in April, and that obviously kind of changes. We're not going to be hitting the road and being out of town 6 months out of the year or anything like that for a while. So we decided to focus on something that we could really pursue here and appeal to our current audience, which is, kind of anybody from we have fans that are in their 20s, but most of our fans are, I'd
30
say,
to 60.
30 to 60.
They actually have jobs.
Right. They have jobs. When they
Kids.
go out, they need to get a babysitter. So you factor all those things into where you play. And so we're doing a series of theater shows for the holidays in December. We have 7 of them booked. In all different corners of the metro. We're going to Rochester and a couple places that are a little bit outside of town. And then we're making a holiday EP, some of which we had a couple of the songs recorded already, but we're in the studio doing the rest of them right now. So
Some originals, some covers, and some half and half. Did you get the email today I sent
it's
you?
cool.
It is,
I know,
right?
yeah.
So you guys know what's the most often sampled drum loop of all time? Anybody know? Seriously, how could you possibly not know that? Funky Drummer, James Brown's song. The drummer's name is Clyde Stubblefield. He's still alive. He plays in a blues band and lives in Madison, Wisconsin. And it's the anytime you hear that, that's the sample of James Brown's song Funky Drummer. Clyde's super pissed. If you ever go to Madison, look him up. He'll talk your ear off about it. I never got no money from that. Anyway, and he didn't. It's a shame, but it's literally the most often sampled piece of music in the history of hip hop. And so there's that. We're looking for. We got to do some holiday covers. I'm Jewish. My feelings about holiday music are well documented. So I'm like, okay, how do we do this so that it doesn't make me sick? And so one of my Christmas songs I actually kind of like is Little Drummer Boy.
Right.
So we took a mashup of Little Drummer Boy mixed with the drum loop from Funky Drummer.
Yeah. And you sent me the beat today, and it was at least 45 seconds in before I realized that that's what we were listening to, because it's so different. And then I was like, oh, this is really cool.
It's like if James Brown's guitarist was playing,
Right.
It's almost like a 70s porn version of
Yeah.
Little Drummer
Our
Boy.
kind of Christmas music.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, if you're going to do a holiday record, people are going to be pissed at you if you don't put some traditional stuff on there, because that's nostalgic for people, and that's what they want to hear that time of year. So,
But we're going to be pissed at us if we don't breathe some new life into
Right,
these things. And
so-
oh my God, who hasn't done? I mean, Seven Dust has done a Christmas album. I mean, you know what I mean? Everybody has done a Christmas
with
record.
the same songs.
Yeah. So how do you got to really get creative to make it work.
And we tried to pick, I think most of the traditional stuff we picked, we don't know of anybody else who's covered it, or, the versions of it that were covered were not well known at all. So we tried to not go with the grain on
The one
that
from Charlie Brown.
Yeah, we're doing Christmas Time is Here.
Yeah.
And then Happy Christmas, the John Lennon thing.
Oh yeah, the John Lennon thing. Yeah,
And,
that's a little different. And I think that besides putting together the Christmas EP and putting together this Christmas show with some guest musicians, it's a lot of work, because you've had to line up media partners, a radio station and a TV station that will partner with us on the promotion and print media and all
Yeah,
this
it's
different
a
kind of
different
stuff.
beast.
And since it's the first year of it, you know what I mean? It's a tough sell.
Yeah, it's a tough sell, and I have no idea what I'm doing because, I mean, we've had corporate sponsors for shows before, but we had nothing to do with lining them up. You know, we've played Cities 97
The venue
sponsored
did,
shows,
yeah,
but
right.
it wasn't us who did that. So I'm currently in the middle of making a PowerPoint presentation because I was advised to do so by Kimberly to make my pitch pretty.
Kimberly Gottschalk, who we had on DIY 360 a few weeks ago. She's the
Yeah,
queen
I met
of this
with
kind of
her,
stuff.
and
Yeah.
I had just written up this what I considered a pretty well, especially for a musician, pretty well written pitch that I was sending to these corporate sponsors, and I showed it to her, and she's like, "Well, this is all the right information," but she's
PowerPoint.
like, "This is how I send it out," and she brought like a 12-page PowerPoint, so there was pictures and bullet points because people have so much ADD that it's just easier for them to break it up that way. And so that's my new project for the week.
And you better get cracking.
I am.
Do you guys have any questions for Allison? Anyone here? There's one. I got to repeat the question on here so we get it on the camera feed. How did you fall into your voice the way you sing?
I think it's a big mishmash because but my mom was the white, red-haired chick with freckles in her band who sung all the Aretha Franklin songs. So that's she, raised me listening to Motown and the Supremes and all of those people. My dad was a classical music composition major. So he grew up, the pop he was interested in was like the Beatles and Simon Garfunkel and those guys. So I think the songwriter part of me came from my dad and the soulful part of me came from my mom. And it was suppressed for a long time because growing up in like choir music theater land, they kind of want you to blend and sound like everybody else. And I was always being told to be quieter and tone it down. And when I finally stopped listening to all those people and went to McNally, and they encouraged a lot of that. That's
And then
kind
us
of
working together too.
Yeah.
Remember in the beginning, you approached studio performances and live performances in a recital way. Like the goal is to not make any mistakes.
be perfect.
Yeah, and I was just like, no, the goal is to not be boring.
Right.
Doesn't matter if you
That's
make mistakes.
completely
All the
different.
people out there are drunk or stupid. They
Yep.
don't know. They won't care.
Yep.
You just need to be like your PowerPoint thing with Kimberly. It's like, you know,
Right.
you need
Hit
to
'em over
grab
the
them by
head.
the throat and make them listen, which doesn't have anything to do with like, and now we
No,
are
because
going
I
to the
used to
Beach
be
Boys.
so stiff because I was so terrified that if I hit a wrong note, like nobody would credit me as a legit musician. And now I've made so many mistakes that
Oh, we've been in huge venues where you totally clam out and you look at me and laugh.
I know. Yeah, now it's just if you don't take it too seriously, they don't take it too seriously, and everybody forgets about it by 30 seconds later. So
Yeah.
it's different. But I think, just kind of trusting your gut and writing as much stuff as possible. Because I definitely wrote differently when I started writing. It was much more boring. And when I got comfortable and I started playing with jazz chords and blues chords, then that's kind of when I fell into myself, I think.
When I first heard you sing, that was a gimme. I was like, it's kind of like if you're a guitar player and someone hands you a 57 Strat, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so fun to play. And as a producer and writer, when I heard you sing, I was like, okay, well, that part's all set. We got the vocal. But I remember the thing that the frosting was one of the first time you came over to do pre-production for the first record, and you played the song Stop. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of experience as a songwriter. I'm not often pleasantly surprised by other people's songwriting. I am maybe on the radio or something, but but someone in the room, you know what I mean? I'm kind of like, what do you got, kid? And you were a kid. How old were you?
21.
Yeah, something like that. White girl from Wayzata, I was just like, okay.
Yeah. How bad could you have
Wrap
had
this
it?
up by 6 and we can go to Embers or whatever I was thinking at the time. And you played that song Stop, and I remember saying to you, we were in my basement studio, and I was like, hold that thought, I'll be right back. And I went upstairs and I went in my wife's office, and I was like, oh my God, did you hear that? And Ruth was like, holy shit, like that. Because the last time we'd heard any soul like that in the house was when Johnny Lang would come over and we were working on his records. So it was the fact that you could write such a great song, I think was when I realized that we really, really had something here. And, you know, I know that's an old one for you. You're probably sick of playing it, but you should see what you guys, if you get the same vibe. Imagine you're just starting to produce a record on someone, and then they play you a song like this. See, I want to know what you would think.
I woke up this morning, all night had been a pouring. The raindrops left polka dots on an empty street. The birds started singing, just so I could listen. I swear they were singing for me. So let me be the one to tell you this life has just begun. Now won't you stop and learn to listen? Stop ignoring the beauty that we have been given. Step outside of yourself to notice everything else. And just stop. I went for a walk just so I could talk to myself and be alone for a while. Mothers and children are laughing and giggling. There's a warmth in the air, so help me, I swear. I gotta find a way to tell you some kind of way to help you. Whoa, stop and learn to listen. Stop ignoring the beauty that we have been given. Step outside of yourself to notice everything else. And just stop. When I was sure I was on the verge of fading away, but I made up my mind to save my own life each and every day. I stopped and learned to listen. I stopped ignoring the beauty that I've been given. I stepped outside of myself to notice everything else. I stopped. Well, I stopped and took a minute, 'cause I've been living this life without really living, or watching from the sidelines. I finally opened my eyes to all that I've been missing. I woke up this morning, all night had been a pouring. The raindrops left polka dots on an empty street.
Thank you.
So that was a good day.
That was a good day, yeah.
So she's got to go because she's got to teach more piano and voice lessons today. But we're at Lake Harriet Bandshell doing a free all-ages show Thursday night.
Yes, despite that the strip says it's Wednesday night, it's Thursday night.
The local media still on our side. Yeah! Anyway, thanks for coming, you guys. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Alison
you.
Scott.